All right, what's up, everybody? I have multiple interviews today. It is August 5th, Monday, first Monday of August, and I think it's going to be a pretty wild month. I am super excited to talk to my good buddy, Ron Stowers. Let me position Ron before we start having this conversation. So I've known Ron for a number of years as the Chief Strategy Officer for Homeowners Financial Group, great client of MortgageCoach and Trust Engine. Today, Ron is Chief Strategy Officer of the mortgage industry. He has transitioned and is supporting multiple lenders as a Chief Strategy Officer. And Ron, the way I like to think of you is you're just you really are an industry visionary. I think one of the things that you and I have connected on, while we do our walk and talks, previously as a customer of mine. But you're always thinking, where's the puck going? And you're always kind of like really trying to, how can lenders be sustainably profitable? How can loan officers win in the market today and the market 6 months from now and 1 year from now? Is that fair to say? Is that how you try to execute?
Yeah, that's absolutely the case, Dave. I'm totally passionate about understanding the future of the mortgage and real estate industry and then leading the companies that I affiliate with to the sweet spot of that future. But it's like you, Dave, it's anchored in just a really deep belief in the American dream of home ownership and using real estate, as a vehicle to wealth in America, and then just the noble professions that loan officers and real estate agents have in serving that purpose. I want to help loan officers. I want to help them do as much of that as possible as we serve our purpose and passion.
So I'm excited to have this conversation. So if you're a loan officer, trust me, guys, you're gonna get really clear like what matters most today in a way that's going to matter most tomorrow. If you're a producing executive or you're, C-suite executive, it's gonna be a great conversation. So I left it to you. You came up with the headline, "The New Normal." Why did you pick that headline for today's conversation?
Yeah, and it's evolving a little bit, Dave, but my thought is, the industry found themselves in this storm, and I liken it to like we're on a wooden Spanish galleon in the middle of the ocean, and we're all great seafaring sailors, and all of a sudden this giant squall hit our ship, and we've never seen a storm like this, and we're a little bit bewildered and scared, and we're trying to get out of the storm. We're doing the best we can to survive, and the storm to us is volume going from 4.1 trillion to 1.4 trillion in just a short amount of time. The margin compression, the competition, the scarcity of loans, that's all this part of the storm, and we're trying to seek refuge on shore, and we're guiding our boat to the shore, but the shore is a different land than where we came from, and I call that land the land of the new normal. And because we're going to get there, and some of us will be unprepared to thrive on that land. There's going to be new challenges and all sorts of new disruptions. And the thing I'm really trying to encourage loan officers and companies to do is let's not be completely concentrated on the storm. Let's look at where we're going to land and what we need to do to prepare to thrive when we get there. And one of the things, and not everybody loves this thought, if we can't figure out how to thrive in the place we're going, then we shouldn't probably have the fight against the storm. Companies that are losing a ton of equity and money, 9 quarters of losses. If you're not ready to win when we land in the new normal, you might need a different strategy right now. It may be a time to exit. But instead, I encourage you, let's build now. Let's charge the shore and let's thrive.
Yeah, I love that thought. I love that metaphor. So let's both go back and forth on, we'll keep playing the Mayflower or the boat.
Yeah.
We've got this boat and there's weather. And the weather, first of all, has shifted rapidly with lower interest rates, between the news that has come out and just where things are going from a macroeconomic perspective. I think it's safe to assume that if you're a mortgage executive, you're a loan officer, you need to make a bet. Like I did my morning update this morning, like it's OODA loop time: observe, orient, decide, and act. That we need to act around protecting our portfolio and optimizing refis. Like that's weather, that's an action. And then another thunderstorm is the NAR settlement. What are some of the key things when you think of the weather right now in the mortgage space? Those two things, and what else?
Yeah, Dave, you're absolutely correct. The weather is changing in this boat, and you're mentioning interest rates fluctuating. You're talking about the watershed NAR settlement, which is really going to change, our funnels and our lead flows. But to me, the bigger changes are consumer behavior and expectations, company platforms and performances, leadership, responsibility and privilege. Like those things, technology, those are having a bigger impact. They're not as immediate as interest rate fluctuations, but they're definitely more severe.
So time out. So I want to break all those down. So consumer behavior, technology, and then what was the other one that you said?
Leadership, compensation, and also, Dave, I really love this thought of the last mile. So we get a chance, I'd love to riff on that with you.
Yeah. Is that weather, the last mile?
The last mile, if we think of the new normal, and all the new normal it's just an analogy for approaching the next horizon. And there's always going to be a next horizon. And as everything shifts in real estate and mortgage and technology takes up a bigger footprint in what we do, and all these other changes, in the end, the last mile, the last delivery is a human helping a human. And no matter what else changes, the last mile is a person helping a person. And how do we optimize that? Because we can talk about investing in the right technology. We can talk about, expenses and investments. We can talk about compensation models. We can talk about delivery models. But in the end, it takes a human, right? And we can't forget that, and that the human will always have a role.
Yeah, no, agreed. And well, and by the way, just the way you described it just now, I think of the last mile is all of these factors come into how well is that executed, how efficiently, how profitably. Um, it all has to do with technology, leadership, compensation.
Yeah.
So tackle those in however you want. Like you came in with a vision, we had a title. Where do you want to start on these things?
Yeah, I think let's start with, consumer behavior changing. And I firmly believe that the consumer of today and the consumer of the future wants more value for less cost. And that as an industry, whether it's real estate or mortgage, we're going to have to defend our how much we pay, how much we charge, and there's all sorts of stuff that goes into that. But that's the first thing. And the next thing is the consumer of the future. They want to do business the way they want to do business, not the way we tell them. If you think about it, in the mortgage industry, you pretty much have done business the same way for 3 decades. We give the borrower a needs list. We tell them our process is. We tell them what we need. It's been pretty much the same thing, although it's been simplifying over the last 10 years, but we dictate terms. The consumer doesn't want that. They want to be helped the way they want to be helped. And we're going to have to quit being tone deaf and start delivering that. We also, the consumer wants to be cared for. I mean, it's crazy. They want to be heard, they want to be understand, they want to be cared for, and they want to be served, right? They deserve that. They absolutely deserve that. They deserve a highly skilled professional advisor that serves their best interests, that cares about them, that walks them through a very complicated transaction, or hopefully a lifetime of transactions.
Well, I definitely love that. And as you know, the trust engine roadmap and the way that we're using data and customer experience, it's based on the needs of the consumer, predicting what their needs are so that the loan officer can call, text, email, and the loan officer could deliver advice with price. So I mean, that fits. I'm glad you did start there, and that was a nice tie-in to what we're doing as a platform.
Absolutely. And Dave, everything that MortgageCoach is doing in Trust Engine, it's about adding more value to your customer, and being a better advisor and helping them the way they want to be helped. Whether it's, the embedded videos or the live chats, or being able to do a mortgage coach, giving them the data they need, breaking it down in understandable ways without being condescending. I mean, that's all critical about us getting more skill in serving our borrowers.
Yeah, the one word I want to add to everything you just said, and they want more transparency. The consumer of today wants, expects, demands, I mean, you look at some of the most, disruptive changes. Uber, Uber's Uber checked all the boxes. I could see where they're 3 minutes away, 2 minutes away. Oh, this is the way they're going to take me where I'm going. Oh, this is what I paid them. And I can see that they took me the most efficient and effective way. Uh, the consumer got more value through transparency. It was less cost, or at least perceived less cost than a taxi driver, because I didn't have transparency. And I think, the mortgage industry can learn a lot from that change and that disruption. And I do think real estate needs to do the same thing. Any thoughts on real estate and how, with the NAR settlement, realtors need to deliver more value at less cost? Any thoughts or projections?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think all real estate agents have to do to succeed in the future is do the things that they've been promising they've been doing. I mean, if they just do the 100% that we think they should be doing, consumers will be happy with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, agreed.
And we talked about that. I was at the Inman Connect conference last week. It was terrific. Great job, guys. And probably the most impactful session was Mike DePreety's section. And he had this really fascinating. They did this study. His company did. They did secret shopping across the 50 states, and they did hundreds of markets. I think they sent secret shoppers in, and they shopped the major players in that market multiple times. And get this is an unbelievable statistic, right? Only 58 when they shopped open houses. So they sent a secret shopper to an open house. Now the secret shopper was only asked for their contact information 58% of the time. 58% of the time, right? And then of the people's information they captured, only 38% of them got a follow-up call or contact, which means 22% of the willing, able, and buyers that went into an open house in this study were actually followed up by a real estate agent. If the agent had just done 100% of what they should be doing, just imagine how much success they could have.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated. That's part of the last mile. If we do our job the last mile, we do the things we've been promising, then we should succeed.
I just before you interviewed Steve Della Viega, and he made a whole point. He said something in a way that really resonated with me, but he talked about open houses, and I think, and tell me if you agree, open houses are going to be a bigger deal on the other side of post NAR settlement. And he's like, think of them as opportunities to capture data on neighbors, data on buyers. And I think too many agents, they're there to get buyers, but they don't care enough about the neighbors, and there's not enough intention around getting data, building data, so that you can then put that into your platform and you can build lifelong relationships with people. Any thoughts on that?
I 100% agree. 100% agree, Dave. And I would go to say, we all have to get better at leveraging every opportunity. Every opportunity. So around every opportunity, every lead is a whole universe of peripheral opportunities that we have to learn how to mine, right? If it's you get a listing, you go knock on doors around your listings. If you have a buyer, you go knock on doors for your buyer, not only for the service to the buyer or the seller, but to your point, to leverage that opportunity to create other contacts, because there's nothing more important than our database and our contacts in the future.
Yeah, no, nothing more important. All right. Well, I think anything else you want to add to customer behavior before we tackle some of these other topics? And I also want to make sure that before we run out of time, everything around the new normal gets covered.
Yeah.
That might take a day, but
yeah, exactly.
But the majority of what you wanted to hit on the new normal.
Let's talk about expenses and investments, because
let's go there. That's a hot topic.
Yeah, and I came out with this. I did a podcast. I have a new normal series on Thursdays that you can check out. And I did a podcast on this.
Whoa. Is this a new podcast? Is that what you're going to call your podcast, the new normal?
No, I just so I'm doing this 90-day challenge from Renee Rodriguez, where I have to go live 15 minutes every day. On Thursdays, I talk about the new normal.
Oh,
And
got it. So it's a series. Got it.
I've done 7 of them. They're on Thursdays. One I did, and it was expenses create friction with your customers. And what that means is the company with the least amount of expenses that delivers the most value will win in the future, period. And then, so then you got to look at, is it an expense or an investment? And you really have to look at it from your consumers, point of view, as well as from your employees' point of view. Because we're really in an environment where low-cost providers are putting a lot of strain on our margins. High-tech platforms are becoming exceptionally efficient. Economy of scale that you got to remove that expense friction. And shout out to Dan Hansen. I got this from Dan Hansen about 15 years ago. He had his first day at a company I was working at. Literally his first day, he walks up on stage in front of all the sales leaders, and he goes, "If you have somebody in your organization that, God forbid, got ran over by a bus on the way to work, and their passing didn't cause you to lose one loan, you don't need that employee." Hardcore, especially your first day. Welcome, I'm Dan Hansen. And I love Dan. She's so good. But isn't that true? If that employee doesn't generate business or business opportunities or customer retention, then that employee is friction between you and your customer. And you have to remove that friction. The same thing for technology. If you have technology that your company's not adopting well, that's wasted expenses. That's friction. Now, I would argue convert that from an expense to an investment by getting better at it, by getting better adoption, right? But you have to look at every expense. If you become bloated with too much leadership, or if you have inefficiencies, like our borrower, do they care that your processor is only closing 10 loans a month instead of 25? No, they don't want to pay for your inefficiency. You got to solve those efficiencies to get as less expense friction as possible. One other thing, Dave, on the same thing, what the borrowers don't want to pay in the future? They don't want to pay other customers' expenses. I'm buying the houses. I don't want to pay for the 5 people whom you did applications that didn't close. I don't want to pay for those guys' credit reports. I don't want to pay for their work numbers. I don't want to pay for their uncollected fees. Don't put that on my costs. Right? Don't put your inefficiency on my loan. Don't put your other outside costs on my loan. I don't want it. Right? And so we have to figure out, those are all friction points with our customers. We got to remove those friction points. What do you think?
Well, I think you're 100% right. And one thing that really distinguished you with me, I don't think it was the first time we ever met or talked, but it was the first time where I went like, wow, this guy is different. And I got an email before our meeting, and it was just very well thought out. Like, there are, topics that you wanted to cover when we met. And then you had also broken down like, hey, mortgage coach loan officers, I want to say it was 6 basis points more profitable from a price concession standpoint. I don't remember the exact number, but it was, you knew how much more profitable the loan officers that use our product were. And then you knew you had met with different people on your team, and there were some things that like, hey, can we do a better job at this? And hey, we're doing a great job at this, but let's do more of this. And then you were also really humble, like, you tell me, what should we do to do better? And so I have to assume that the way you approached our partnership with measurements and the type of intention that you brought to it, I wasn't the only partner you managed like that. And I just know I was very impressed. I thought, like, one, we're gonna be able to create a case study here. So I'm thinking in my interest, like, case study, we're gonna be able to grow. And then I thought, like, wow, this guy is really doing a great job of ensuring that the company is optimizing your spend. So would you mind just walking me through how you think and how you managed other, partners like ourselves?
Yeah, and Dave, think that was a really good early meeting. And it was, my intention of meeting with you is, how do we optimize this expense? How do we make it a great investment versus a drag on our performance? And we analyzed, if you remember, what we looked at how did pricing compare to Mortgage Coach versus non-Mortgage Coach loan officers. We really got into conversion, and we also talked about retention, right? And so the retention.
That's right. You were the first one that showed that retention number.
The retention differences were off the charts. We're the people, and that makes sense. If you're an organization, if your people adopt your value propositions, then they get sticky to the company. If they don't adopt your value propositions, then the relationship is weaker, right? And so one of the things I would advise companies is create a standard, a minimum standard. And one would be you have to use our value propositions if you want to be on our platform because it will give you better results. And by the way, for the company, we retain you better. Great. So I think, with something like, pricing was somewhere around 15% better for the loan officers that use MortgageCoach, and conversion rate was much higher. It was like 30% higher conversion rate, and retention rate was almost 100% better. And so when we got together, I said, Dave, here's our results, but I think we're not doing great on. Can you please coach us on how to get more out of your product? And you were very nice, and we got together for a couple hours and we brainstormed about how to do it, and you had your team help us. But I would hope every company does things like that in every single thing you do.
Yeah. And I can't remember. I mean, your goal and my goal became very synergistic. You knew that people that used our platform converted more, higher gross margin, you retain them better. How do we get more of them? Of course, me as a partner and a vendor, I'm like, I want the same thing. And then we've made progress ever since then. So and just shout out, guys, whether you're a C-suite executive, watch this, whether you're a producing branch manager, whether you're an individual alone and you're just managing your own P&L, you should know what I always talk like. I've had people that have the worst keyboard skills on the planet that have adopted MortgageCoach because of their why. They were super clear on why they were doing it. And so a lot of the measurement that Ron is talking about, it grows your why. Executives, this helps grow the why, not only for you, but for your other managers, so I just can't emphasize how important stuff like this is.
Yeah. And Dave, let me
by the way, and this should become the new normal. Like, this should not be like Ron's one of the very few executives doing this. This should become the new normal.
Yeah, I think overwhelmingly there's a misconception that loan officers and leaders have that volume's going to come up and that's going to solve our problems. I don't believe that's true in the future. I think we're going to live in a low margin world, because if you look at the 2020, 2021, market where we didn't have capacity, and so how the lever we had on capacity was margin, and so we inflated margins to just try to slightly slow down volume. But this time around, the giant players, participants in the market space, are not going to have capacity problems. The way that they've automated and the technology, they're going to be able to swallow a ton of technology. And Dave, as you know, because we were at the Housing Wire AI Summit, and we probably saw 20 presentations on how companies are leveraging AI. The big companies are not going to slow down one bit with volume. They might even speed up. It's going to be crazy. And so that lever isn't going to happen. The other thing that's happening is, servicers, the whole, experience around servicing is completely polar opposite today. It used to be that everyone hated servicers. Servicers were so bad. They generally had negative ratings from their customers. Today, the biggest servicers have really positive relationships with the people that they serve. Like, their clients like them. And then the servicing platforms today have built great retention platforms, right? They have, it's not like it used to be. They're not some hacks from a call center. They have highly talented and skilled loan officers working off of their retention platforms and
using their technology, leveraging their data, delivering the customer experience that they intend to deliver. Their quality.
And deploying predictive analytics to better, the servicers now are skating to speed to need, not speed to lead. And they're getting to the clients before the clients even know or have talked about a refinance or a purchase. It's another thing. Servicers are getting very good at mining for purchases. Like, how scary is that, right? Because you have all sorts of servicers like Mr. Cooper that have opened purchase call centers that are, working off of their $1 trillion, servicing portfolio. It's just a different game. And, I think it was Stratmore. Stratmore's been having great articles. Garth Graham,
They always have great articles, but they have been particularly on point lately.
But in his article about the upcoming refi boom won't raise all boats was a phenomenal article.
And put a link down below, guys. There'll be a link to that down below.
It's so good. But he said, look, in the refinances today, servicers are getting 49% of the refinances. Straight out, half, scraping off half, right? That's scary. To me, that's scary. And then the originating loan company is getting about 29%. That's 80% of the opportunity off the table already, right? And what we falsely believe is that when volume comes up, they'll start losing some of those, those loans, and we'll get the scraps. I don't want to bet on that. Instead, I want to get better, and I want to be able to compete, and I want to go out there in the street and win those loans. And you can't do it at the point of lead. You have to do it at need. And so we have to figure out, first, we have to put our arms around our customers, and we have to be in a relationship, and we have to know them. We have to be constantly serving them, and we have to be in front of the need, right? Because we'll lose when it becomes to a lead.
Yeah, I believe, and again, I'm Mr. Mortgage Coach, Trust Engine, but I really believe it's this simple. You have to be predictive from a data perspective. You have to have loan officers that are going to take action based off of that data. You could deliver a better customer experience with Mortgage Coach. I mean, think about a rate and term refi powered by a total cost analysis where, like, hey, this is your monthly savings. This is how much this is over 5 years. And if you were to prepay your mortgage by $100, look how much faster you'd pay it off. Like, if a IMB gave that type of an experience to a consumer in a super timely way, they'd win.
Yeah.
And so, and then it just comes down to training your loan officers to do it, and then building a culture of excellence. Now, by the way, those were, I could draw that on a picture. It's very simple, but to actually do that in the real world takes a lot of fortitude, takes a lot of leadership, what does it take? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really interesting going back to Stratmore, and I think it was Mike Seminary, who's really been their tip of the spear on customer experience. He had this really interesting article or study that Stratmore did, and I might get it totally wrong. So, Mike, if you listen to this, I totally apologize. But it was something like this: something like over 60% of clients that give a loan officer a 5-star review won't use that loan officer in the future. And so loan officers and companies they overvalue what the relationship is with the consumer, believing that 5-star meant something. But in truth, it doesn't hurt the borrower or your customer to give you a 5-star review. It doesn't hurt them at all. So they take the easy path. But somewhere in the transaction, there was a defect that in their mind is going to prevent them from using you in the future. You might have been asked for the same document twice, or whatever the defect was. And so what you have to do is you have to perfect your origination fulfillment process. You got to squeeze out all the defects. You have to absolutely control the customer experience and delight them. And that just gives you the right to ask for the repeat business. Super, super important to understand. We way overvalue our performance. It's to your point on execution, Dave. You got to put the entire process under a microscope. Every single point of contact with a borrower is critical. Every person in that process needs to be scripted, needs to be delivering value, needs to be delighting the customer. I don't care if it's your appraiser, the home inspector, the processor, whoever touches that client needs to be a marketing person on your team to serve the client.
Yeah, no, you couldn't be more right. So let's do this. I would love to have you speak directly to the C-suite around this new normal. And you could do it in a way, because you're not, currently on a team, you're a consultant. So you could just say things when you're a consultant to the industry. What is the path forward for and let's just focus on IMBs, distributed retail, IMBs. I think, well, I know, because you and I have done walk and talks, we both believe they can be profitable in bad markets and good markets. And you've seen the power of just Mortgage Coach. Like, literally, if Mortgage Coach was well adopted by a lender in a bad market and a good market, that alone could in some cases be the difference between profitability and non-profitability. What's your advice? Whether you want to do a rant or whether you just want to lay out some points, what advice do you have?
Yeah, thank you for asking me this, Dave. I would tell you my overwhelming advice is you have to have standards. You have to stand for something. Because when you have standards, you now start to build a brand that means something. When you violate your standards, the truth is your lowest common denominator becomes your standard. And so you have to protect your walls by not allowing a lowest common denominator below your standard. And this is really important, whether it's expenses or your value prop, or your delivery, or your execution. A lot of times when we get desperate and volumes down and we're just trying to breathe and we're trying to pay the bills, we drop our standards, not knowing the damage it does to our brand, and not knowing the inefficiency it causes and the lost opportunities it causes. And in the future, we're going to need to have much better execution and perfection in what we do. And so we can't get off standard. And so what do you stand for? What's your value? Why do people use you? Why, just like we ask our loan officers, why should a consumer use you? Why should a real estate agent work with you? Every company has to ask themselves, why do I exist? What's the compelling reason for a consumer to do business with my company? What is the compelling reason for an employee to work here? And if they disappear tomorrow, would it make a difference? Like, is anything in the marketplace lost? Or is it just like taking a finger out of a pot of water? It disappears. Build something that is meaningful to the market, that makes a difference, that is compelling, and you will succeed in any market. But it takes a ton of discipline and passion, and execution. But that's the glory in what we do. That's the exciting thing we get to do.
Got it. Yeah, no, it's truly an exciting time. Where do you think on the other side of the NAR settlement, what percentage of buyers do you think are going to be making an offer to buy a home and be completely blind as to whether or not the seller is willing to pay for their buyer commission? What percentage time are they going to be not knowing until they get the counter?
Yeah, no, I'm a Dave Savage podcast junkie. So I've listened to your podcast where you ask people this and debated it, but I have a strong opinion. My answer is I hope 100% of the time they're going to be blind. That's my hope, right?
But what do you think it will be?
It's going to start 50-50 and it will shift to zero or 100%. 100% will do blind because, and I love Jack Miller on this, and Tom Ferry's done great. I think you're going to have Tom on, and you're friends with Tom. He's been a leader on this. I know you and I have been listening to Tom's podcast on this topic for over 2 years. But Jack Miller puts it this way: don't read people's minds. If you're the seller, don't assume what the buyer needs. Don't assume they need me to cover X amount of commission. Don't assume anything. Let the buyer make an offer. And then if you're a buyer and if you're a buyer's agent, don't assume what the seller or seller agents will accept. What the seller wants is the optimum deal. What the buyer wants is the optimum deal. The buyer can put an offer in, and that starts negotiation to see if you can come to a place in the market where you have a transaction. Super critical, right? And so listing agents, in my opinion, shouldn't say, hey, we're offering 2% or 3%. I saw a list the other day where we're giving an $8,000 grant. I don't even know what that means, right? Instead, go, we're open to all offers. Give me your best offer and we'll see if it works. And then the same thing for the buyer's agent. Now, the thing that loan officers are critical in, we need to solve cash to close, and we need to educate our buyers and our real estate partners on how to make transactions work. What's the minimum things we need? We need to be flexible. Like, that's how we're going to become indispensable to the transaction. But let's help our buyers make their best offers. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, no, and it will. I'm going to second to last thought question. If that's true, I do not think most realtors are prepared for that. And I do not think most loan officers are prepared for what they are going to need to do, some new skills they need, some new talk tracks that they need. Do you agree? Like, the industry is really not prepared to deliver on that change in the sales process.
I agree, but I agree with you, and both you and Tom Ferry have been saying the same thing. This is the greatest opportunity that most real estate agents will have in their lifetime to differentiate themselves, to level up, to set themselves up for success for the next decade or 2 decades by becoming more skilled and more impactful. And part of that is exactly what we're saying. So they're not prepared, but they're going to have to get prepared. It's okay. It's what makes them valuable.
So my message today, every Monday morning, I do a leadership message to producing branch managers, And my message this morning was it's OODA loop time. Observe, orient, decide, and act. And so managers, I just, my closing thought on this interview is that's what time it is. I mean, rates are coming down, NAR is coming in. It's time to iteratively, how fast can you go from observe, orient, decide, act, and then of course upgrade the skills of your sales force so that they can win in this market. And it really, I think it's the best opportunity for anyone who has Mortgage Coach or Trust Engine. This will be the best opportunity you ever have to get adoption of that technology. So make sure you're leaning into our partnership. And not only will we help you win, but this is a really great moment in time to get adoption. What are
Yeah,
your closing thoughts, brother?
I agree. I got two thoughts to wrap up with, Dave. And I'll refer, I read an article this morning in Inman from Jimmy Burgess, and Jimmy's been doing great stuff, great content, great leadership.
He's a great
He's
leader.
been awesome. But I actually took issue with his article, and his article was, hey, here's 8 value propositions you need to build into your buyer presentation. And they were all super helpful, super valuable. It was the things that you can do for a potential home buyer, right? But it totally missed the boat. Like, don't tell people what activities you're going to do for them. That's somewhat a given. Tell them how you're going to help them succeed with the things that are most important with them. Tell them how you're going to help them achieve home ownership and what that means. Tell them how you're going to help them create wealth through real estate and what that means. Then give them the activities are just a delivery process, but serve the person in the greater need first. And agents still aren't figuring that out. And sometimes loan officers aren't. Like, start there, serve the human, serve the need, and then deliver that, right? And don't get confused with serving and delivering. Two really important things. And Dave, we talk about, gosh, how do you do that? And I was boring my wife this morning at breakfast, and I said, if I was a real estate agent or I was a loan officer, my presentation, my buyer's presentation, my borrower presentation, the first slide would be, here's why home ownership is critical in the United States. Here are the 7 benefits that make it critical. That's slide number 1. Slide number 2 is, here's the wealth disparity between renters and owners, right? That's slide number 2. Slide number 3, here's an affordability chart of a home ownership over time compared to rent, right? I would just get right into, this is why people own in America. This is why it's so important. This is why I'm passionate to help you. Let's go. Let's get this done, right? And you just don't see that. I don't understand. It's the simplest thing.
Wow, you made me think. So first of all, thank you for being a founder friend of First Home IQ. And and thank you for being such a great customer and partner at Trust Engine. But I think you and I should put a little presentation together, and maybe you, me, and a mortgage coach do a little training where we put that presentation together. Be thinking about who you want to partner with on the mortgage coach side. And I would love to do a whole, interview around teaching a best practice, because I agree. And that is a trend that I'm seeing with the top mortgage coaches. They have the TCA, whether it's the move up buyer, the rent versus own, but then they have some data and some slides. More and more, I see people using lender marketing platform. Actually, that would be really cool to get Scott Nichols involved, and we'll create a Ron Stower lender marketing platform, mortgage coach, Trust Engine collaboration. Would you be down with that?
Yeah, down with that. I like Scott.
All right. So closing thoughts, bro.
Yeah,
How do you want to wrap it up?
I'm an ambush on a closing thought. I am going to share my screen if you're okay with that.
Hey, bring whatever you want, man.
I just want to pay homage. Can you see my screen?
Oh, okay.
Homage to the GOAT. This is your Art of Referrals 26-page outline on how to build your business from 2007. And if you go to the last couple of pages here at the bottom of this report, and by the way, Dave, I was cleaning out my computer, and I was looking at my past library, and I came across this. Yes, I was checking my 2007 file. I found this, and I go, this is still applicable today, right? This, how to, all these ways to capture business. I like the last one here. I'm going to slide down to. It's a revolutionary way of doing business. You could run that today. It's still, it's still relevant. And all that says is we just need to learn how to execute what we know we need to do. And we need to master the last mile of delivering the human experience around all this change and just stay on course, and we're going to be perfectly okay.
Wow, well, that was a beautiful flashback. That was actually an upgrade. Here, you go ahead and stop sharing the screen. So by the way, guys, that was the Art of Referral. You could just Google it, Art of Referral, and put my name, Dave Savage. I don't know if I wrote that in the late 90s or the early 2000s, but that particular edition was, just before the meltdown. And, my backstory as in the mortgage industry was focusing on CPAs and financial planners. And that was a playbook of how I did it. And it's, it had Mortgage Coach built into it because I created Mortgage Coach to execute on that strategy. Anyways, that was a flash from the past.
Yeah, I mean, you have complete integrity about financial integrity and adding value to the people you lead and helping them achieve meaningful things. And that's true today. So good job there. Good job.
Yeah. And here's the thing, guys, what percentage of CPAs and financial planners do you think have an intentional, active partnership with a mortgage advisor? What's your guess?
5%.
If you're watching this, tell me what percent it is. And here's the reality in America. It should be 95%.
Absolutely.
The CPA and the financial advisor, by the way, it should be 100%. They manage the asset side of the balance sheet of America. We manage the liability side of the balance sheet for America. And 90% of the problems are the lack of management, proactive management and optimization of the liability side of the balance sheet. And so just a big push to our industry to execute, get out there. And now with this NAR settlement, getting to the consumer first. Yeah, realtors are important, but your database is more important. Getting to the customer first and bringing that back to the realtor has never been more important. So any other closing thoughts, bro?
No, you're exactly correct. And Dave, we just scratched the surface. We could have talked about, about funnels and lead flow and all the stuff, all this changes, but it's so fun. And then we'll talk about it on our next walk and talk. Well,
I hope we can make it work this weekend. I'm sure we can at least one day. And appreciate you. That's another reminder to anybody. Do walk and talks. So if you're a loan officer, do walk and talks with your team, do walk and talks with realtors. Try to build into your schedule once a week where you have a intentional meeting where you talk about business, but you're walking and try to do it at an inspirational place that's, driving distance from your house. And trust me, business will be better. Life will be better. All right, Ron, appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, Dave.
All right. Hope everybody got value. If you have not already subscribed to the Trust Engine Mortgage Coach YouTube channel, subscribe now. If you are not following savageinsights.com, that is where I update the most recent interviews. That's where I put whatever I think is the most important interview to watch. And Scriptapalooza is being promoted now. It's in a couple weeks. So sign up for free. We're going to have Phil Jones facilitating and leading that. We're going to have 6, world-class mortgage professionals breaking down the 6 conversations that matter most in the market. So get signed up for Scriptapalooza, and this is a wrap. Take care, everybody.